Hi, good morning, and welcome to Asking the Expert, episode 3. Today, I have great pleasure in interviewing Dave Parker, safety officer and security expert at Reading Football Club. Dave, good morning, and welcome on this bank holiday Monday. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Paul. Looking forward to going out this afternoon for a nice cycle ride in the sunshine.
Lovely, brilliant. Well, I've got to cut the grass, so that's going to be my exercise for the day.
Good, excellent.
You're looking well. You're still in lockdown. I know you've been busy. You've been doing a lot of stuff for drop-offs for NHS and stuff, haven't you?
Yeah, no, I'm basically in lockdown. My dad's in his 90s. I've got an aunt in her 90s, so we haven't seen them for X number of weeks. So kind of looking for a bit of easing of the lockdown, but I don't know when that's going to be. But I'm adhering to the rules, unlike maybe some other people.
We're not going to get into politics, though.
No, I wouldn't want no. Or football teams.
No, we'll come on to football teams. We'll come on to football teams shortly, because there is only one football team. Thank you very much for joining me. It's great to have you on the show.
Sure.
You know, in terms of crowd safety and being a safety officer, Dave, run through for me, please, and the audience, your background and then how you moved into the private sector.
Right, well, many moons ago, in 1985, I joined Thames Valley Police straight from university. And in the police, did 30 years in TVP. I had many roles, starting off obviously on the beat, did a bit of neighbourhood policing, CID, but then my heart really was in operations, firearms, public order, protests, that kind of thing. I worked my way up through and ended up as a matchday commander at Reading Football Club, which I did for 10, 15 years. And then my last 10 years in the job, I was running firearms teams, which sounds very Gucci, very exciting, chasing after terrorists and armed robbers. But in reality, a lot of it's extremely mundane. You're stuck in the back of a vehicle for weeks on end, waiting for something to happen, and it just doesn't happen at all. But I enjoyed myself in my time in TVP. I had 9 months pre-retirement leave at the end, and I'd spent that time getting my MVQ level 4 in spectator safety. And then I went on to become a safety officer, first of all at Bristol Rovers in League One, then more latterly with Reading. But in the off-season, I spend my time doing music events and food events. The food events are really exciting because there's less stress involved and plenty of stuff to eat. Whereas in the events, you can imagine, Finsbury Park, I do 2 or 3 there a year, clearly not this year, and that can be quite... get your blood pressure up a bit. Yeah, the older.
How did you see the transition, Dave, from being in the police service and in coming into the sort of the public sector realm of security and crowd safety? Was there a big jump for you? Being matchday commander, obviously operational on the ground, you had the operational overview of the Medici Stadium, but how was it? How was the transition for you?
It's quite hard because in the police, it's very command-led. You tell your constables what to do and they do it. Very transactional, especially in the public order kind of world. Whereas you go into the private sector and it's slightly different from that. But what you understand in the private sector is actually how experienced and how well trained the vast majority of stewards are. The vast majority of stewards. And then when you go to places like Finsbury Park or Reading Festival, where you've got 105,000 fans there, you understand that the actual quality of the stewards can vary considerably, but they have got their heart in the right position, and it's easy to motivate the stewards because they really want to do the job. Whereas a lot of the police officers, I can say this now, when you put them in a public order situation, some of them really don't want to do it, but they don't have empathy for the situation. I'd always brief my officers up and say, when you're going to Reading Football Club or Oxford or MK Dons or wherever we were playing, wherever I was working, it's the stewards who work there every single weekend. They know exactly what the crowd's like. So you need to listen to the stewards, and you only be called in when the support is really required by the matchday safety officers. And that's a big learning thing, I think, for a lot of police officers when they jump from police service across the private sector.
Sure. We're going to come on to your stadium now, the Medici Stadium.
Yeah.
So in terms of the capacity, I believe it's 24,161 all seated with 2,327 away fan areas. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, you are.
Oh,
You've done your research.
I've got it written down in my notes.
But next season, we're hoping to be slightly different in that where you've got the red band and the grey band, we're going to swap them over because, as you know, Paul, the red band it says Club 1871, which is where our more vociferous home supporters are. They are going to move across to by the Y26 area, and it's going to make safety even more of a priority for us because we'll have this segregation gate between the two, and it means the away supporters can just disappear off without having to mix with our 1871 group. So we're always reviewing it. Even in lockdown, we're reviewing it, trying to make it better.
So you're currently, Reading's, the good old Royals is currently league position 14. So take us through, Dave. What is your primary role? Let's talk about what happens during, before, and after a normal match. We'll come on to a Cat C plus match, which I've worked alongside with you in a couple of Cat Cs at Reading. So, you know, if you just let the audience know what is your sort of primary role and your week leading up to either a midweek or a weekend game.
Well, a safety officer, you've got to look after safety, security, and the customer service. They're the three big things for me. Now, at the beginning of the season, we'll go through all the fixtures, Paul, to see exactly how we think the away fans are like to perform and how we think our fans are like to react to them. So we kind of agree with the police basic categorisations at the beginning of the season. And then about a month before the game, we'll review it again, look at the information intelligence that we've got, that may be from the away club, that might be from our own stewards, from the police, and then we'll have a sit down and we'll risk assess exactly what type of, whether we need the police or not. Because what we've got to remember is it's up to me as a safety officer to invite the police onto our footprint. It's like, you know, you could think you can come into my house, but I've got to invite you in the house.
Exactly. Yeah.
Clearly, you'd be able to come in my house, because, you know, we get on well. But we only have legal responsibility for the footprint. Morally, we should probably have responsibility for the whole town centre, because without football, there wouldn't be away fans come in. But legally, that's all our responsibility. Then 48 hours before the match, I will do a safety walk around with the maintenance department to make sure the PA system's working, the lights are working, and it's just a safe environment. We can actually open our gates on the day, because it might work swimmingly well at the last match, but you just don't know what's gone on in the meantime. And then I'll produce all my documents, briefing documents. I'll speak to the away club. I'll tweet the away supporters, explain exactly what we expect of them. For example, keeping the aisles clear. We'd like them all to sit down because it's an all-seater stadium, but we fully accept that, and I'm sure we'll come to that later on. As long as they keep the aisles clear, that makes it a safe environment for me. So if we have a medical emergency, we can get in and offer first aid. And then on a match day, another walk around to make sure everything's safe and secure, the lights work, the PA works, etc., etc. I'll then go and brief my senior staff, then brief my supervisors. Then the next thing I need to do is go and brief the referee. The referee's already had a briefing pack from our club secretary, but you have to go through that because you have to explain to him, and sometimes her, because we actually have female assistant referees now, so we've got our own accommodation for female refereeing staff. We explain to them exactly where the away support is going to be sat or stood, and then is there any history between the two clubs? Because they may not know that. Most of them do know that, but they may not have done their research. Or if a certain player has been very, maybe outspoken in the press. I mean, there has been one that's been very supportive of not wearing a poppy, I think, on Armistice Day. And he's received a lot of abuse throughout the whole of this current season. So you need to let the referee know this is how we're going to behave with that, how we're going to react to that kind of behaviour. You also have to reassure the referee that if anyone comes on the pitch, and touch wood, we haven't had any this season, they're our priority, we're going to protect them, get them off the pitch. If a drone, for example, flies over, how we're going to interact with the referee, so that's through the fourth official. Each club does it slightly differently, and then I will introduce the person who will be the link with the fourth official. Once we've done our briefing to the referee, which normally takes 10-15 minutes, The next thing is to go back up to the control room, and the stewards will do all their safety checks, making sure that all the emergency gates work, the emergency phones are still working, and then the game starts. So I do my safety announcement just before the kickoff, probably 15 minutes before the kickoff, so the fans know what they're supposed to do if there is an emergency. And then at half time, I'll have a briefing with the bus company to make sure they're aware of how the fans behaved, and they'll feed back to me how the fans have behaved coming up to the stadium. And then we agree our post-match positions with the senior staff. And then post-match, normally a hot debrief because it all goes well. And then I have to do all my paperwork, as you expect, for the FSOA and also for the EFL to report back on standing any kind of issues that we've had. And then I'll do like a debrief report for my bosses at Reading Football Club, because we always have a debrief within 48 hours. Yeah. So we just kind of problem solve.
I want to take you back to sort of your paperwork and your documentation, Dave. Now, Reading's very unique. You have an in-house complement of your senior safety security team and stewarding, and then you have about 4 or 5 contract companies, which I'm fortunate to be one of them. And what I like, David, is what you produce to your team on the ground and the briefing that we get. So, stand supervisors, response teams, the stewarding, it's very integrated, and it's great to see. Other stadiums and clubs, it's very much, right, we're in-house, you're just gonna take care of that. We'll let you know but what you do and what your team does, and it's great to see is that there's a mix. It's not a divide. It's part of Reading Football Club. Whether you're contract security, you form part of the security and safety team, and that's really, really nice to see. And the documentation that gets produced and the briefings is great. It's for me, it's up there with the Premier League clubs. What you do there, so well done on that.
Up with Tottenham.
Sorry,
up with Tottenham.
You're with Tottenham. Yeah, well, not quite as good as Eileen at Tottenham, but yeah. I think you'll get it. There's different budgets, Dave.
Yeah.
Budgets. And talking about it. Go on.
Sorry, Paul. Also, what we do is we've got a lanyard that everyone has.
Yeah.
So if you're an agency, you've got your own lanyard, so we know how we give out and how we get back.
Yeah.
It also means, I know you're very good at keeping the staff turnover extremely low at Reading, but if you have a new member of staff, which clearly happens, we have new people starting at Reading on a regular basis. They've got something that they do a mod 0, so have a walk around, and then they got the lanyard. So if someone comes and says, "Can you tell me where gate 6 is?" They can look at the lanyard, and it's all on there, and it's got all the emergency stuff on the back as well.
It's great. It's a quick snapshot in the event, even if a customer asks where is X, Y, and Z, the steward and it is true. Within our industry, there is a rotation of staff. There is a high, sickness, and people don't attend, and we have to draft in. But what's unique at Reading, we get the opportunity to actually walk the guys round before the match, before the briefing, I should say. They're then welcomed. They have a full briefing and a full safety walk around of the area and the emergency exits, and the lanyard is great. It's a quick reference in the event that something does take place in Y25 or Red 30. They can actually go to the lanyard and say, right, that's my SOP. That's what I need to do. There's the codes. So I think that works really well.
Yeah.
In terms of budgets, Dave, Reading's not obviously a Premier League club
yet.
One day it may well be, but Reading has produced some fantastic players, and one in which did go to Tottenham and captain. So
who was that?
Gary Mabbott.
He was also at Bristol Rovers.
Yes, he was. Yeah. So
maybe that's the common thread. Maybe one day. No.
One day.
One day.
in terms of sort of budgets, Dave, with an English Football League and a Premier, there is a huge divide. Is it for your resources in terms of your camera systems? You've got a fantastic control room. Okay, it's a great control room, and ideally, if we weren't in lockdown, I'd like to be doing this interview with you in either your control room or one of the boxes. The control room's absolutely brilliant. The ground's beautiful as well. It's not an old ground, and the facilities are there, and it's great. But in terms of budget, Dave, are you limited what you want to achieve within the club in terms of your budgets?
That's an interesting one. Very good question, because safety clearly has got to be the top priority. It's a bit like, dare I say, you see the adverts for, I can't the adverts for, but they talk about NASA and they say to the person with a broom, what are you doing? And he says, or she says, I'm putting a man on the moon.
Yeah.
So safety, we're very, very good kind of one team approach. And just going back to your agency staff, they're really, really important to us because it's not backfilling, but it's kind of augmenting, but it's also the experience they've got, because they will have worked not just at Reading, but probably at Tottenham, Twickenham, music events, and they can bring that all to Reading. So if I'm ever gripping the rail after a post-incident, post-match investigation, I know I can trust these individuals because A, they're properly trained, properly briefed, but also they've got the experience. It's not their first day there.
Yeah.
Going back, sorry, to your question, if I want more staff, I can always ask for more staff. Because at the end of the day, safety is a top priority. And if I didn't get it, and I went to our safety advisory group who offer issue out the safety certificate, they'd say to Reading Football Club, if you want to open up, you need to give him what he wants.
Yeah.
But you've got to be realistic in that I will look, as I said earlier, about which teams are coming to play us. And for example, we had, and there's not casting dispersions on Wigan, but Wigan on a Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday evening, there was no way that we were going to bring a big contingent down. So we were able to cut down the number of staff that were required for that game. But if in the FA Cup, for example, we had Sheffield United, it may not be the biggest club, but we played them on a Tuesday night and it was a large crowd for us, and our 1871 sold out. I was able to bring more staff in, and if intelligence changes, I can just bump up my staff. And I've done that with SGC before. Mm-hmm. I've said on the Friday, look, can we have a few more? Because it's a bit of a comfort blanket for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, budgets are tight. They're always going to be tight. But if I need it, I will get it. And an example I gave earlier when you put a nice plan of the ground up was about us changing the two sets of fans over.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put a safety gate, move it from where it was between as it is currently, the away fans and Y26 to bang in the middle of the stadium. And that's clearly got to be paid for because that's a safety issue.
So Dave, there's various different categories within matches. If we take the high echelons and Cat C plus, would we put a Millwall into that Cat C plus at Reading?
Well, Millwall have always had the reputation, haven't they, of causing trouble. However, I've got to say, working with their safety officer and the club, they made a real effort to try and turn it around. Yeah. 2-3 years ago, they were actually the family club of the year, and people laugh when you say that. Yeah. But actually, the issues that you find in football now, I think have dropped considerably compared with the bad old days of the 70s and 80s. Yes, they will come with a reputation, and there'll be some of the young lads who will seek to try and enhance that reputation, live up to it. Yeah. This year, we did them as a Cat A. We had 2 Cyrils, which is about 12 police officers there, and it passed by without any great issue.
Yeah, it was good match, good atmosphere, and it was a great match. I don't think we had any ejections, and I think everything really went to plan. So,
but Paul, if I can just say, it's also down to how you brief the away fans. When we tweet out to away fans, and Leeds were another club that came, and people would say, "Oh, you'll need loads of PSUs, loads of police officers." Yeah. The vast majority of fans, whatever club you go to or you play, they want to have a good time. They worked hard to earn their money. They want to spend their money on a Saturday or on a Tuesday, Wednesday night and enjoy themselves. So if you say, we're going to steward you on your behaviour and not on your reputation, that means a lot to them. If you say to them, we've got 10 eateries outside, you're welcome to use them. We've got Thai, Greek, fish and chips, burgers, vegetarian, whatever outside. There's beer, lager on sale outside. We'll sell you beer and lager during the game. It sounds controversial, but actually that kind of works for us, because if you say to them, you're not going to be able to drink in the ground, all they will do is preload, or they like to preload before they come in. Yeah. And you've got drunk fans trying to get in, they get stopped from coming in, and then there are issues outside. So isn't it better to get them in? And it's not just a financial view, it's a kind of safety view as well. And it worked well for us this season, and it's worked well when I was at Bristol Rovers.
Yeah, I think definitely given that welcoming experience, even when they get onto the train stations or they're getting onto the coaches, so they know what they're entering in. They're coming up to Reading. They know if they're going to come up to Reading and see 10 or 15 PSUs outside, they're going to see lines of police and security straight away. The defence is up. So I think what you do at Reading is great. It's very family. It's very family welcoming. You get across as a safety officer to all of us. Welcome the fans in. Doesn't matter where they're coming from. Treat them as our own. Interact with them. Don't stand off them because they're Millwalls. Interact. How you doing? Come through. If you've got any vulnerability there, we can get them through into a different turnstile. Kids, etc. And I think it diffuses the situation very well. And like you say, they do have a small high risk, and they are the youngsters now.
Yeah.
Going way back.
Also, what we do is for the away fans, it is reserved seating, and we know with the best in the world we're not going to be able to sit in the right seat. But at least if you try and manage that at the beginning and say, this is where you're going in, this is the gate you go in, that makes a difference. Plus, we also say to the away fans, it's well known that if you're disabled, if you want to sit down throughout the game, go to a family area. And we actually have areas that we will not heavily steward, but will ensure that people don't stand up in those areas. So that if you're in a wheelchair, if you're ambulant disabled, you will be able to see the game. But if you want to stand up at the back, as I say, we know it's an all-seater stadium and that legally they should all be sitting down, but we have to be realistic. So yeah, I think that we do manage them quite well.
Dave, moving on to the Sports Ground Safety Authority. So the new Green Guide, version 6, come out last year. They went into consultation again about various different sort of upgrades in terms of training and safety officer training. The SGCSSA are the regulator. They regulate around about 90 licenses, including Wembley, and they give out the license. And they're a regulatory body in terms of football. How do you see them? Do you engage with them as quite a lot as a safety officer? They give a lot of advice out, which is great. And in terms of sort of reviewing the Green Guide and reviewing the processes, are you a big fan? Do you support that, or is there more that they could sort of be doing?
Right. Well, the Green Guide, so version 6 came out last year, 6, that hadn't been reviewed for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think they need to be more reviews, and they've been quite clever this time because even though you can buy the hard copy, various chapters are electronic. So when they get updated, and I think the fire regs is one of them, we will be able to actually download those. So they're being a bit more agile than they may have been in the past. They're also being a lot more proactive in that they are currently running kind of online training sessions for Zone X, capacity calculations. They've got worked examples of various areas. So you don't just have to read the book. There's actually worked examples. So that kind of suits different learning methods as well. I think also they've become a bit more diverse in their makeup. Their inspectors, they used to all be male, white ex-police officers, and now if half of them are women, which is great. They've got experience in building regulations, sports, policing, planning, etc., etc. So there's a lot more. They cover more bases now than they did in the past, and they're there more to help. When I've gone through probably 5 different SGSA inspectors. And more recently, they've been a lot more supportive. But it's not just for the clubs, it's also of the safety advisory groups, because the SAGs who issue out the safety certificates, I'm aware of one SAG that's chaired by the fire service, most are chaired by local authority, and it could be someone who's really into sport, great, excellent, they're going to be very supportive or be able to be a good critical friend, or it could be someone who maybe is an inspector in food. Which, yes, that has a place when it comes to stadia, because obviously you're providing food, but actually the main thing is a P&S factor, the physical and the safety area, where they may not quite have the expertise, whereas I think the SGSA inspectors now are able to help them out, and they actually mark the SAG on their performance as well, which they didn't used to do.
Well, that's good. That's good to see, because they're then being audited themselves and reviewed.
Yeah.
Training, okay, so you probably know that I'm a big advocate in terms of level 2 and level 3 and level 4 spectator safety
Yeah.
training. I make no bones about it. I personally feel that stewarding should be a licensable activity.
Yeah.
They are the first people that we meet when we go into a football ground, okay? They are the first people that we engage with, whether we've got the ump because the train's been delayed or my ticket's not working.
Yeah.
You know, the review of the training of the MVQ level 2. Do you feel, Dave, that the stewarding family should be brought into the Private Security Act? Should they be licensed like a DS and a security officer? Should the mandatory training for a steward, like so first aid, counter-terrorism, conflict management, physical intervention, do you think that should now be brought in sooner than later?
Customer service, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
The big bugbear of mine is, I mean, I've got an SAA badge. I won't say where I did it or who trained me up, but the exact.
It wasn't me. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. In fact, it was in a different country. It was in Wales. I did mine, but anyway. But that's neither here nor there. But I sat down. I'd done my study. I knew I was going to pass a multiple choice, but they came round. They were giving answers out, and I reported it. And I had the same thing at a previous club when I was at Bristol Rovers, another club not that far away. The trainer would actually come and give the examples to the stewards, answers to the stewards. And again, I reported that, but to the assessing body. But as you say rightly, the SAA, you've got an overarching body that provide governance, which is great, but they don't insist on CPD. And every X number of years, you just pay your money and get another license.
Yeah.
So that, I think, for a start, that needs tightening up. They need to make sure you're doing CPD, and there needs to be some kind of dip check to make sure that you're still up to doing the job.
Yeah.
When you come to stewarding, yes, SAA, sorry, just going back to them, I can check. If you come to me and say, I've got an SAA badge, what's your number? I can go and check myself to make sure you actually have got it. Stewarding is completely opposite. I get an MVQ level 2, 3 or 4, and I've got that for life. No one ever checks it. No one ever checks if I've done any CPD. I don't even have a badge. So I could walk in and say, hi, my name's Paul Macarthur. I've got a level 2 MVQ in spectator safety. And presumably some clubs would just say, fine, sign the dotted line, you're going to get paid for today's event. At Reading was slightly different. So as you all know, when your team turn up, they may well have their SAA badge. You have a rep there who's able to kind of open up a computer and show us their training records if need be. But we insist on ID as well, whether it's a driving license with a photo on it or a passport, because we've been caught out too many times before where I've turned up and say, yeah, my name's Paul Macarthur, I just signed the dotted line, and actually you've got no idea what the blazes you're doing. Yeah. So it all needs to be tightened up. So sorry, just to go back to your question again, in reality, it should be licensed, and you should have to prove yourself over X number of years that you've done your CPD and you're still fit for purpose.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if I have to grip the rail because something's gone wrong, and I say, oh, X was my supervisor from Y company, and then that person's just disappeared off the face of the earth. There's no way of ever tracing them.
Yeah, there's no recourse.
No way at all. And I'm going to be gripping the rail by myself, whereas at least, say, with a company like yourselves, who've also got the ACS and British standards and say accredited safe contractor, I know that you would have trained them up properly. You would have done all the checks to make sure they are eligible to work, and you do your own training, your own CPD as well. So it's really, really important. Really important.
Do you feel, Dave, being a safety officer as well, you know, under the regulatory, there needs to be a yearly refresher for a safety officer in terms of level 4? Because,
yeah,
you know, at the moment, great, I'm a level 4 safety officer, I go off and X, Y, and Z, but there is plenty of CPD. You know, for the last 8 weeks being in lockdown, I've done so much CPD, we've wrote so much CPD for our staff, and we're churning it out and everything else. But in terms of a safety officer, do you think there should be some mandatory 12-month evaluation? Okay, safe capacity calculations, I know is one at the moment where you've got to actually prove that you can work out the dynamics of the safe capacity of area of a stadium. Do Do you think there should be a 12-month mandatory refresher for safety officers?
I think there should be. I know the SGSA are trying to push for it, and the FSOA are trying to do that. They're actually trying to run their own CPD.
Yeah.
But the lockdowns kind of put that on hold slightly. But the other issue, I hate to say for safety officers, I've seen a lot leave the job recently because it's not because they're not paid properly, but it's just the risk is so great now because if something goes wrong in a stadium, you have sole responsibility on a match day. So if it goes wrong, if you're the safety officer of a Premiership club and you've got 50, 60,000 people in there, every injury will come back to you. Slip, trip, whatever. If someone burns themselves when they're drinking their coffee, that will come back to you. What did you do? What risk assessments did you do? And I think a lot of people are saying, I've had enough of this. I can go and work somewhere else and I won't have as much hassle. So I really do think that
Do you think it's got out of control, Dave? Do you think that the blame game for a safety officer now has reached a new level where it's, if we look at Hillsborough and other disasters, we've learned a lot over the last 20, 30 years, but do you now feel that a safety officer is pinnacle for someone to, even a court or a coroner to go, you were at fault, you are to blame?
Well, I think the society's gone like that, Paul, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the past, I mean, it's if you fell over, if you was riding your bike, you hit a pothole, you'd say, "Oh, damn." Whereas now you'll be suing the council for the pothole. I think we're now in a society where people are suing left, right, and centre. Yeah. I think also there's so much money in football, in the Premier League in particular, and I'm not having a pop at Premier League clubs. But it goes back to my point earlier, the bloke sweeping NASA, the NASA training base. Yeah, who put the man on the moon? I did. I was one who was sweeping it. People forget there's not that much money paid to stewards. I mean, stewards, a lot of them are on minimum wages.
Oh, yeah.
And they can earn a lot more money going to working at a coffee shop somewhere. Yeah. Speaking to our groundsman recently, he could double his salary if he went to work at a private school.
Yeah.
But so for a lot of them, they're working there not for the money, but because they love it. And I think that's the same with stewards. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of our Reading stewards have been there for donkey's years, and they just love going to the ground and they love meeting people. It's a bit like they're meeting their mates down the pub, but instead of the pub, it's in the stadium, and we put them in the same position and they meet the same people every week. So
it's because they want to go to work, Dave. And I'll take Reading, I'll take you, and I'll take Spurs as well.
Yeah,
people, we've got a mixture of staff that either hate football, love Arsenal, hate Tottenham, but it's where they feel appreciated and where they want to work. If they're getting looked after, they're getting fed, they're getting treated like human beings. The safety officers engaging with them, the safety officers management team are engaging, the fans. They want to go to work, and that's the biggest nucleus now of attracting staff. Yeah, stewarding, I feel, gets used to a bare minimum. Okay, and it's a tick box exercise, and we as a company continue driving the standards forwards in terms of level 2, the CPD work, engaging them, doing extra training with them. But sooner or later, there's got to be a realization here. Hold up a minute. These stewards are customer service facing. They're the first line of defence. We're paying the agency a low rate. They are having to pay minimum wage. The old word of a jacket filler. It needs to go. And I think we're slowly starting to move away from that now, where clubs and festivals and good working sort of management are realising, hold on, we need to do a lot more now in terms of the stewarding element. Forget the DSs and the response teams and everything else, but the stewarding, it needs to be reviewed in terms of how we're using our staff and where they are being deployed and the tools that we're giving them. And like you say, you can hit the nail on the head. You can go get more money at Lidl's and Aldi's on a Saturday, stacking shelves and working on a till, than what a steward is getting paid at either some Premiership clubs and some, First Division clubs. It really does need to change.
But I think the clubs forget that without the stewards, they couldn't open up the ground.
Yeah, you can't.
Without the groundsmen, they couldn't open up the ground. And there's such a gap between the two. We need to narrow that. But the other issue that's kind of worrying me slightly with the coronavirus is that there are a lot of unscrupulous companies that turned up.
Yeah.
And they will come back and say to me at Reading Football Club, I get emails on a regular basis, we can give you X number of stewards for this price.
Yeah.
And it's a lot less than some of our agencies are charging us. And I always say to them, well, have they got level 2? No, they're all SAA trained. No, have they got level 2? No, they haven't. Well, I'm not interested, because I need them to have the whole the group of skills. And I don't blame the poor steward who puts a jacket on. I blame the companies that are setting themselves up unscrupulously, because there is no great standard there. I mean, I know we talk about ACS and British standards and accredited safe contracts, but you will know, Paul, because you sit on the national, you're the regional chair, aren't you, of the SIA?
Yeah, I'm the South East Regional Lead for the SIA, and I think you also joined one of my webinars as a panelist the other week, and I was talking about doing due diligence on purchasing security and crowd safety companies, and don't just buy that price, because if you do the maths and you think, well, I'm getting my stewards for £10 an hour, how is the provider meeting the requirements of the HMRC, tax, national insurance? Do they have insurance? And again, Dave, this is a big problem. I'm seeing during lockdown, we go back to the 2012 Olympics, there is so many pop-up companies that are happening now on Facebook. I've got stewards, I can supply them to you for a tenner an hour. Really? Well, how are you legally, A, making a profit, and B, paying, what they should be paying, and paying their tax and national insurance? And I feel that the end user and the buyer is going to be saturated. When we come out of lockdown, there's going to be a lot of unemployment. People are going to look, well, I need to feed my family, I need to pay my mortgage. So, security, stewarding, I'm going to get into that. And I think there's going to be and it is happening now, there's going to be a lot of exploitation taking place.
Well, I know on music events, I can think of one last year where I saw the same steward over 4 days work for 4 different companies. He just went from one to another, was he getting an extra 10p an hour? And clearly there's, these companies are going out. Some companies are going out and just trying to, inverted commas, bribe people to come and work for them. But without the training, and it won't be the organisers of the companies that will be in trouble, because what I always do before I take on a new company is I look at their website. How good's their website? And I know you just revamped your website recently. Are they ACS, SAACS? Are they accredited safe contractors? Do they know anything about British standards? I always ask the MD or the CEO, British standards, how do you comply with that? Have you got a safeguarding policy? What's your training? How do I know the person you're going to send has got the training record that you've offered? And I know you're very good. You said earlier you send a rep along, and you said to us, if you ever want to check, you'll open up the records for it. It's very, very transparent. But a lot of companies aren't like that. And I think you talked about the Olympics, where a lot of government money was thrown into it because we had to get the Olympics right. That money's all dried up now. And that is when you've now got people cutting corners, because they want to earn an honest buck, don't they? And they're exploiting people, really.
And I think the end user needs to be educated more. And I've done a couple of webinars now, and it's buying the right security. And again with tenders, and even business owners. It's so easy now to set up a security company. It's so easy. Register on Companies House, get a Facebook page, great. And there needs to be a stop. The industry needs to come together. And this is what I'm trying to do within the southeast of England and the south, is to get security ACS companies and non-ACS companies together and saying, look, we're all bidding, including me, we're all bidding for the same clients out there. But it's going to be a race to the bottom, okay? Because I might have X amount of turnover, X amount of staff, bigger overheads. You're operating from a mobile phone, from no overheads. Yes, your profit margin is going to be higher, but you're going to be paying a lot less to that individual with no training. Your insurances don't stack up, but the client will look at it, Dave. If they're on a tight budget, say they've got a tight security and safety budget, they'll look at it thinking, well, do you know what? We can get a full complement of staff here within my budget, and it ticks a safety license. We're going to go with that. And then sooner or later, something's going to go wrong.
Well, especially with Martin's Law coming in as well, Paul, it's just, that is not going to help drive out unscrupulous people, because, as it said, it requires all venue operators to consider the risk of a terrorist attack, take proportionate and measured, reasonable steps in which to try and eradicate or mitigate it. Well, if I'm an inexperienced person, let's say setting up a small music event or a small food event, I now know Martin's Law, I must do something about terrorism. And then I look on Facebook, or I just Google security company. Oh, there's one local just round the corner. Are these people, the people who are trying to buy the security, do they really know what they're looking for?
No, I don't think they do, Dave, because if you look at a production manager or somebody's going to put on an event, and I've worked with thousands over the years, security and counter-terrorism and crowd safety is the least that they worry about.
Oh, yes.
They want to put that gig on, they want to sell tickets, they want to get the headline artists, their acts, their F&B all in place. The security, will get engaged on some events 2 days before doors opening.
It should be all part of the planning. I mean, when I do my work in Finsbury Park, it's for Live Nation and Festival Republic, who are big hitters.
Yeah.
And they make sure that security, they use the same companies year in, year out, and it's trusted people.
Yeah.
But they make sure they're engaged right from the beginning, and all the debriefs afterwards, everyone is involved in the debriefs, and they take it seriously. But I know there are other companies that won't do it. And when I first started doing food festivals, it was a lovely couple asked me to help them out. And they really had no idea about what they required. And I could have sold them a real gold standard, but they didn't need it for the event they were running. But they would have paid for it because they'd have just, I could have just reeled them in very, very easily. And I do fear unscrupulous providers could easily do that. So my advice would be, if you're running a small event, is go and speak to your CTSA, your counter-terrorism security advisor. It's free of charge. They will give you some kind of advice on what the terrorist threat is, what the threat is to the event, what the national threat level is. And they will kind of point you in the direction of things you ought to look for. And that's all free of charge. Then go and do a bit of research. Who else has done a similar type of event? Go and speak to those organisers. Find out what worked for them, what didn't work for them. But also, and we may well come to it, what's the future hold? I think that we ought to really be tightening up on the governance of it. I know the SAR, as we said earlier, with the ACS is fantastic, but there needs to be more rules and regulation how you can set up a security company. Well, I mean, I look at a company's house, and you'll have John Smith or Peter Smith, whoever. They've had 10 security companies. It's Peter Smith Security and Safety. There's no kind of comeback, it appears.
Well, part of if we take COVID, okay, and the SIA, which is the regulator, they've been on the money. Okay, what they've done there, the key worker status for the staff, I think it was a great move. Boris Johnson recognising security staff, it's a great, massive step for us within the security industry. The problem that there needs to be a business licensing brought in. It's been put on hold, okay, to stop and to quash the rogue companies. There needs to be a business license, and a company needs to be registered with the SIA, and they need to go through ACS checks and hurdles before they have been given a license to say, Dave Parker, I am now an approved contractor, I am registered. You can go on a database of the customer and go, okay, fine, you have gone through 20 mandatory checks, directors' checks, ISOs, insurances and everything. This will stop the rogue nation. This will stop the rogue element. I'm fearful, Dave, that once we come out of lockdown, I think 2020 in terms of spectator safety, okay, if we take football behind closed doors, there's going to be an element of security and crowd safety the customer is going to need. Once we go into 2021, we are going to see an Exocet missile take off, because venues, production, they are going to try and claw back as much money that they've lost this year. There's going to be more events. The football season. Okay, if we have a short football season and it shuts down for a week or 2 weeks, and we go into a new season, it's going to take off. There's going to be no break. There's going to be Christmas coming up, there's going to be fireworks coming up. So people are going to want to try and earn money in terms of putting on fireworks displays. There is going to be a huge, I feel personally, a huge impact within the security industry. That so many events taking place in a short space of time, has the industry got capacity to cover what people are going to need? And this is where it's going to be. Our corner's going to be cut. You know, we can't supply the maximum amount of staff, then the subcontracting and the subcontracting. I'm seeing so much of it now within the retail sector of, you know, companies subbing and subbing and subbing and subbing all the way down. I'm very fearful what's going to be taking place next year. I don't think, you know, there's going to be enough numbers, and it's all going to be about, okay, I've got a contract with Reading Football Club, great. Then I have a client come in to say, right, I need 200 staff on a home match, and it's in Reading, and I'm going to pay you more money than what Reading is. Some providers might go, I'm going with that new company. Other companies will go, I'm staying with my client. You know, you're going to be a one-hit wonder.
Exactly.
To try and profiteer off of people that want to go out and spend money. So, what's your thoughts? What's your visions for next year, Dave?
Well, I agree with you. I do fear that a lot of the stewards will have gone and found other work during this 8, 10, 12 month period, and to try and get them back will be quite hard. I think SIA won't be so bad, because I think that a lot of them will be fully employed currently, wherever they're working, at hospitals, supermarkets, etc., etc. But I do worry, as I keep saying, about these rogue traders that set up, and unscrupulous, and all the subcontracting, because that really annoys me when you see someone turn up to an event, say, who are you working for? And I know it's not your company, but I'll give the example of, I think I've got SGC, and then I actually say, well, who do you work for? Yeah. Oh, it's Barons. Sorry, who are Barons? We haven't got them here. Oh no, well, who am I working for today? And they do say that. I've seen it at youth events. They really haven't got a clue who they're working for, and then they're not properly trained, and they're half asleep because they're doing double shifts. Well, I've seen that at music events as well, where they're doing, instead of an 8 or 12 hour shift, it'll be a 16-hour shift. Well, you can't do that. How can you react if something happens if you're half asleep? So I do, same as you, I do worry about the quality going down. Now the government have got an opportunity to do something about it, because as you said yourself, the security industry is pretty flavoured a month with Boris currently. Now they ought to be either trying to put pressure, if it's in the world of football, on the Premier League when they're starting releasing some money to keep some of these clubs afloat. And a lot of these, I personally think a lot of these League One and League Two clubs will go to the wall. But that money needs to be actually earmarked, say, well, that has got to go on security, or that's got to go on this. It can't just go on players' wages or bailing a club out who need this, that, and the other done for them. Because I keep going back to who puts the players on the pitch? Well, it's a groundsman who actually keeps a pitch in tip-top condition. Well, who allows the fans in? Well, it's the safety officer and the stewards who actually keep the fans on the right side of the barriers, etc., etc. And I think that's often forgotten. I think that is often forgotten.
So, how do you see, Dave? Just a final question for you. We've covered a hell of a lot of topics. I could spend hours and days talking to you. How do you see the next 10 years within sports grounds and stadiums in terms of security and crowd safety? How do you see the crowd dynamics? Is coming out of COVID going to be a massive challenge where, the red-blooded males ready to get back into football? They want to let off some steam over the last 8 weeks of being locked down. I've missed my football. How do you see the football and crowd safety sort of taking place in the next 10 years?
Well, I think initially it'll go one way or t'other, because everyone's been kinder to each other, aren't they? So either they all come back as like little lambs and, oh yes, thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Stewart. Of course I'll do that immediately. This flare, I'm sorry, I've got a flare on me. Do you want it before I go? Or it'll be a bit like a sugar rush at a kid's party where they're absolutely hyper, if you can call it that, if that's politically correct. But I think what we've got to remember is our grounds have been the safest in the world, across the world, for many years now. After the Taylor Report, the Green Guide, the SUSA goes around the world, they advise on World Cup, Commonwealth Games. So we've got to remember that we've got very, very safe grounds, and we've got very, very good stewards. I mean, as you have, I've been across the world and seen how stewards operate, and we have got some of the best, I think, in the world.
Second to none. Brilliant. Absolutely.
So I think the standards will stay up. Also, I've noticed at the clubs I've worked at that the fans, it's an aging fan base, which isn't good for the future of football. But on the flip side, what is good is you're getting more women there and more families there. I think 20% of people who attend Premier League games are actually women, which has got to be good. Really, really good. I'd like to see more BAME fans there, because if you look at the pitch, there's no representation in the fan base. There's very few people of colour actually go to football matches now. I'd like to see more of that.
Yeah.
But over the last 12, 18 months, we've had the racism incidents have come back into the game.
Yes, definitely.
And as you'll know, that we now have a protocol we're supposed to go through if there are any such incidents at our stadiums. But football has always been the national sport, and it will always continue to be the national sport. So other grassroots football might die off slightly until we're completely out of the COVID, because I can't see how grassroots football can start up again for a long, long time. But I think, in summary, that the fans will come back. They will be better behaved. The stewards, I think, our Reading stewards, they will come back, because we've got a little Facebook, Reading Football Club stewards Facebook site, and everyone's kind of supporting each other.
Can't wait to get back,
Yeah, and they can't wait to get back. And I know that the unscrupulous stewarding companies, we won't have them, but we'll carry on having companies like yourself and a couple of the other local ones that we've got, because they'll want to come back. People are missing football, and I think they will toe the party line, dare I say.
Yeah. Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope everyone gets an insight in how one of the best safety officers in the UK operates, and their views and visions. And thank you very much, Dave, for joining me on Asking the Expert today.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to make contact with me, I mean, you can pass my details on. I'm more than happy, because it's just really important. Safety is so, so important that we kind of drive it up, and standards stewarding. So thank you very much, Paul. You run one of the best companies.
Thank you very much, Dave. I'll send you the cheque later.
I haven't been working. I need it.
I've got some stewarding work coming up if you're interested.
Yeah, I'll do anything.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Right. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.